Red Bull's 2023 Formula One winning run has come to an end, and with a bang, as the Singapore Grand Prix went down to the wire amongst a lead group of 4 drivers, none of whom were sporting Red Bull colours. With the RB19's shocking drop in speed this weekend, Mercedes and Ferrari battled for victory, with Lando Norris utilising the improved McLaren to get right in amongst them. But how good was Carlos Sainz's triumph? And did Mercedes do all possible to keep him and Ferrari at bay? And what about that mistake from Russell? Did Russell cost Mercedes the win by staying too passive behind Norris? Both Mercedes drivers pitted late for medium Pirelli tyres to challenge eventual race winner Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris on their ageing hards. On the 62nd and last lap, Russell was sitting on the rear of the second-place McLaren when Norris clipped the outside wall. The pursuing Russell did something similar, although he made considerably more forceful impact to damage his W14 before spearing headfirst into the barriers. That spectacular collision propelled teammate Lewis Hamilton to 3rd place, while Russell, who started 2nd and could have fought for the win, was placed 16th. After his pathetic error on the penultimate lap of Formula One's Singapore Grand Prix, Russell wanted to curl up in a ball and be with nobody. Russell and Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton closed down on race leaders Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris late in Singapore after committing to a 2-stop strategy and cutting the margin throughout the final stint. Russell could have won the race if he had cleared Norris's McLaren with the one huge chance he had to go into 2nd, because Sainz's Ferrari would have been vulnerable on his old hards, and without the use of the drag reduction system to defend in the way Norris did. Russell remained a disgruntled 3rd and appeared poised to settle for the last step of the podium until he banged the outside wall with his right rear under braking for turn 10 and soared down the escape lane into the barrier. Perhaps Mercedes shot themselves in the foot by not selecting a single driver to compete for the win in the final laps. Instead of focusing only on passing Norris forward, Russell had to maintain one eye on a dozen half moves and glances to the inside or outside of his W14 from teammate Hamilton. Hamilton was well within his rights to do so in the absence of an order, but it hampered Russell's efforts to pass Norris. Mercedes may have benefited by selecting any driver and ensuring they had a free run to maintain their focus solely on the race, even if team instructions are rarely appealing. But they didn't, so instead it resulted in a minor disaster on track, which prompted Russell to say the following: "In those moments, you just want to curl up in a ball and be with nobody," Russell said. "It's the most horrendous feeling in the world, when you're so physically drained, mentally drained, missed out on an opportunity of victory, and then to make such a mistake. It is truly heartbreaking." Russell's suffering and self-pity did not end there. He stated that he would not simply brush it off, and that he would have felt very different if he had spun or locked up and hit the wall. "It was a very strange race, with Carlos managing the pace for the whole duration," Russell told the media. "It's quite difficult to keep the concentration because we were driving 1.5 seconds of the pace, but it was only natural for him to do that with the tyre advantage we had. If he was any faster, it would have only given us the opportunity to pit under the virtual safety car." That was when the race really turned on its head and got really exciting, and I was really pushing flat out. But again, Carlos did a great job managing the gap, and the DRS with Lando was very smart of him to do. I had half a chance overtaking Lando, and I think I would have won the race had I got ahead of Lando, and Carlos would have been stuck with DRS and I would have flew by. Instead, I end the race in the wall and have no idea how that happened. It was probably a lack of concentration, maybe frustration knowing that it was the last lap and the opportunity to win was gone. A 1 centimeter mistake clouded the whole weekend. I'm not just going to brush it off, such a nothing of a mistake. If I spun off or had a lock-up and ended in the wall, I'd be feeling very different. To clip the wall on the last lap is just a pathetic excuse, so it feels strange. It was probably my lack of concentration as soon as it was the last lap and the opportunity was gone. It goes to show that you just need to stay on it and it doesn't matter what the scenario is." Russell made an attempt to emphasize the positives. He believes he's driving better than I've ever driven, after returning from the summer break with a considerably stronger run of form than when he started. Russell has outqualified Hamilton 3 times in a row and spearheaded Mercedes' attempt for victory in Singapore, having previously been a clear, not significantly but clearly second best to Hamilton. That's why Russell was so encouraged by his amazing qualification and great race, and was certain that after a tough night, probably a tough morning, he'd be able to put it all behind him. "I'm not going to let one corner from the whole weekend cloud what's been such a positive weekend," Russell said. Despite having the better weekend and being the faster driver, Hamilton was the one who stood on the podium. Hamilton currently sits 3rd in the standings, 71 points clear of Russell. Hamilton isn't flawless. so it's a stretch to say he never makes errors. But he's had a far cleaner season, cashed in well on his good days, hence his 5 podiums to Russell's 1, and mitigated well on his poor ones. The amount of disparity is clearly not completely Russell's fault. He's had some terrible luck, including an engine failure in Australia and Mercedes' handling of the weather at the start of the Dutch Grand Prix. However, large, isolated blunders like these, while unusual, suggest that Russell still has some room for improvement and he's aware of it. Russell was obviously perplexed by this one. He didn't think it was impacted by Norris's own wall brush ahead of him. However, following Norris's path and being a little too greedy in attempting to open up the corner entry even more may have been the culprit. I saw Lando brush the wall, and in that split second I thought, oh, he's just hit the wall, and 0.2 of a second later, I've hit the wall, said Russell. It definitely wasn't Lando brushing it that caught me out. Norris brushed the wall with his right rear tyre at the turn 10 left-hander in an attempt to keep Russell at bay on the penultimate lap, but was able to continue while Russell's identical contact sent him into the barriers, allowing Hamilton to take the podium. Speaking immediately after the race, the McLaren driver explained, "I hit the wall on the last lap in the same place as Russell, so I think he copied me and just did it even worse. So I feel for him, he fought a tough race." Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team manager, said Russell was penalised for a split-second lack of concentration, but he didn't want his driver to be too harsh on himself. He stated that he would rather have this happen now, so that it was engraved in him when more is at stake. "George is an out-and-out racer and is devastated," said Wolff. "I'd rather have a steep learning curve with such a situation. It's his second year in Mercedes, and it's going to happen again when there's another victory or championship on the line. But obviously, he's very upset. Russell will definitely need to discover what caused his blunder, if he hasn't already, once he's cleared his mind. That is essential for progress." Russell has admitted to making silly errors in the past, and while this has occasionally cast a shadow over him in the eyes of some, he's always bounced back stronger. When asked if this is one of the most difficult times in his career, Russell scoffed, not dismissively. "Oh, I've had a few. I feel like I'm generally not a driver that makes stupid mistakes, and I feel like I don't crash that often in qualifyings or in practice. But over the years, I've just had some very simple mistakes that have had huge consequences. And it's something I need to review because I feel like it's not me to do something like that. We were so quick this weekend, I'm taking that as a positive. And these mistakes won't happen when we're fighting for a championship, I can assure you that." Some strong and uplifting words from Toto Wolff and Russell, but one keeps wondering, could Hamilton have stolen the win if he was ahead of Russell in the latter stages of the race? Even though Russell had been quite remarkable in comparison to Hamilton all weekend, based on some of the lap times, a best of 1 minute 35.867 seconds for Hamilton versus 1 minute 36.273 seconds for Russell. It was the 7-time champion, releasing some of the race pace magic he's renowned for in that last stint. So if Hamilton had been ahead, Mercedes would have had a little greater chance of victory because of the added bite of pace. In any event, even with that justification, there was no compelling reason for Mercedes to exchange the cars at the time. It would have been nearly impossible to explain to Russell, and even more difficult to persuade him to agree without the benefit of hindsight. And it was way too short and too heated a battle to tell Russell, "Okay, you've had a go, now can Lewis have a go? We'll swap if he can't do it either." But even that might not have been enough to take Sainz's win this weekend, as he was driving on another level strategy-wise. What do you think? Did Mercedes throw away a huge opportunity for a race win by letting Russell try and fight Norris for an extended time? Or was it a good call to not intervene between the drivers? What are your thoughts on Mercedes' race? Let us know in the comments down below.